You're listening to Potty Mouth Radio, the home of movies, music, television, and comedy.
And now, the hunt for the perfect album.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hunt for the Perfect Album with Billy and Dave, the show where we are digging through albums that we have dubbed perfection. And today we're here with one of Dave's choices, ain't that right, mate?
Yeah, I swung for the fences with this fucking album.
You did.
This is the biggest flex I think either of us have done to the point where I'm not expecting you liked it. I don't care if you fucking hated it because I was throwing caution to the wind. I'm going to have a big old swig of this 16.2% peated barley wine before we get started.
Well, okay, can you tell... I mean, you mentioned last week a little bit about Laurie Anderson. I hadn't heard of her, and you said she's not really a musician. She's predominantly a...
performance artist.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, that's good, by the way. You need to try this shit.
What is it? I love a barley wine. Is that Hawkers?
Well, Topher would hate it. No, this is one of those beers by Bacchus.
Yeah, right.
It's the Isla Reserve 2023 peated barley wine.
Yeah,
the thing smells like fucking smoked bacon.
Yeah.
It is. This might be the best beer I've ever had in my life.
I'm going to have to check that out.
But 16.2%, so I may fall off my chair before the end of this episode.
So, yeah, you mentioned
Laurie Anderson,
performance artist, and that got me in the right kind of headspace, I think. You know, I'm familiar with, Andy Kaufman, and, like, I kind of knew what I was getting in for once you'd used that phrase. So I think that helped. If you just said, here's an album, I'd be like, this isn't a fucking album. But, all right, tell me about Laurie Anderson.
So Laurie Anderson I got introduced to in high school by a mate of mine. I was one of those kind of nondescript kids in high school that wasn't in the middle of any of the cliques, but had good relations with all of them. So I did rowing, so the sporty kids didn't hate me and pick on me. I hung out in the library with the weird kids. I was playing D&D. I was doing this. I was doing debating. So I had irons in all the fires. But my sort of core group of 4 or 5 friends were the weird fucking pallid kids that hid under rocks in the library and listened to Bauhaus and shit. And one of said friends introduced me to Laurie Anderson with the album that I was originally going to give you before I really decided to swing for the fences with her first album. I was going to give you Strange Angels, which is just a straight music album.
Okay. Oh, wow.
But you would have I knew you'd love that.
Yeah.
So where's the risk? Where's the fun?
Yeah.
I'll give you that later. But I loved that so much. I then went and dove deep and then later found out that down the track she married Lou Reed, who I was a huge fan of, and that made me like her even more. And everything about her just kind of spoke to me. Just these weird performance art pieces. She's the very definition of sort of iconoclastic, marching to the beat of her own drum, doing her own thing that's unlike anything anyone else was doing.
Yeah.
Similar a little bit to later years David Byrne.
Yeah.
The two of them I think are quite good friends from that sort of New York art set.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched, saw some of her early 80s stage productions, of which the album I Gave You Big Science is kind of a distillation of one of those. I loved the fact that she just invented her own fucking instruments.
Yeah, I was reading that, yeah.
Super cool, the tape bow and the talking stick and all the things. So probably 70-80% of the quote-unquote instruments that you hear on the album and not instruments that you would ever see or hear of, they're just shit she's made up. Yeah. And it's genius stuff. I mean, the tape violin is just an astonishing... It's what it is. It's a violin where the bow is magnetic tape and the violin itself has a magnetic head reader.
Yeah.
And she plays it like a violin, but the sounds that come out of it, she can do essentially whatever the fuck she wants. She can make
like a MIDI machine. Yeah, like she was very heavy in the
talking sticks and MIDI thing.
Yeah,
as well.
She was very heavy in the creation of all that kind of stuff. Electronic music as a whole and MIDI.
And she was doing this shit 40 years ago, which is the thing that boggles my mind.
Well, yeah, this album is
it sounds outlandish now.
Yeah,
the idea of the tape violin and the talk. These things sound outlandish now. She was doing them at a time where the rest of the world was fucking playing new wave. Wham were performing. Duran Duran.
Yeah.
It's astonishing to me. So I've always loved her, but I kind of grew to this album and to her earlier stuff from the music stuff. Throwing it to you cold.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like I've told a 20-year-old to go and watch Eraserhead with no preamble.
Yeah, someone who's never seen film before.
So, come on.
Okay, I here's the thing. I quite liked this album. It was a brave move, and I don't think it's a perfect album. There are some tracks here that I'm like, fucking hell, I hate this. There's one track in particular that I'm really like, oh fuck, I can't listen to this.
We'll wait till we get to it, but I have a suspicion it might be my favorite track.
Oh wow. But there are some tracks on here that I absolutely love, actually. So
brilliant.
The album kicks off with From the Air. I fucking love that track. I think that this is, for me, my favorite track on this album.
Good evening. This is your captain. We are about to attempt a crash landing. Please extinguish all cigarettes. Place your tray tables in their upright lock position. Your captain says, put your head on your knees.
I love that track. I think arguably it's the most musical track on the album.
It's definitely one of them.
And when you
start.
Yeah, and when you say about her next album being more of a straight music album, I'm very curious for that because, I was reading that she's a classically trained violinist. Like, she studied at Juilliard.
She is a fucking genius. So the sort of trajectory, just quickly, so this was sort of a distillation of some of her stage stuff that was later expanded. I think when I gave it to you, I said that this came from the United States stage show, but it was actually the other way around. This came from stage stuff, and she built up to this mega stage show called United States, which was released as a 5-album kind of monstrosity.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But following that in the 80s, she had a series of albums that, I mean, to me, they're all musical, but they, from a outsider's perspective, they've got progressively more musical and less, I guess, performance because they were recorded as albums, not taken from a stage thing. So, Mr. Heartbreak, which has a lot of collaborative stuff with William S. Burroughs, and so you've got his cool voice on there, going, the sun's coming up like a big bald head. Yeah. Wonderful stuff. And then she's got an album where she's got, she did one song with Peter Gabriel, which called... Beautiful Birds, some sort of birds. Anyway, but they're recorded as albums, so they're very much they're songs. They're still her, but they're a little. And then she gets to Strange Angels in about 88, 89, which was the first one I heard, which is a straight music album. There's just songs, and it's fucking stunningly beautiful.
Yeah. I'm curious to check that out. So because I will give you that one.
as a future one.
Cool.
Not the next one, because I've kind of got an idea for that. But maybe the one after, because it is completely different.
Yeah, nice. Because, most of the tracks on here I really like. Not just the ones that are more musical. I love her voice. I found her voice very, very soothing to listen to. And she's got a beautiful way. Like you say, she's a performance artist. So even the way that she speaks and talks, it's very intentional. And
I think that it's very kind of stream of consciousness poetic.
Yes, definitely.
The stuff that she writes.
Yes, it's poetic without being poetry in any way, which is really interesting. You hear a concept like this and you think, oh, it's basically going to be beat poetry. That's not what any of this is at all.
No.
She reminds me very, very, very different. I don't know if you're familiar with Liz Phair, who again is, she did a lot of visual art stuff as well as her music, and it's very, very different to this. But I liked Big Science as well, but then we get to Sweaters, and this is the first track that really was a challenge for me.
Can't imagine why.
Jeez, I don't even know if they're real bagpipes or if they're synth. There's multiple layers there. There's the drums out of time.
I think all of that is the tape violin.
Yeah, okay.
See, I find this soothing.
It just keeps going. That was the first track that was a challenge for me. And again, I don't hate it, and it makes sense on the album. But then you get into something like Walking and Falling, which is next, which again is one of my favorites. And again, it's not overly musical. This is probably the most poetic on the album, I'd say.
This is almost like a meditation track, this one.
Yeah, it is. And I think that like I said, there's something very soothing about her voice. I find her voice a little bit ASMR-ish.
Yeah, definitely. Before that even was the thing.
And I was looking for you. But I couldn't find you. I wanted you.
I really like that, though. And I really like Born Never Asked as well. Like the majority,
Born Never Asked.
Same. The majority of this album, I like to love. There is only maybe 3 songs.
Was Sweaters the one that you said at the outset, the one that you actively hated?
That's the only one I actively hate. And then there's maybe 2 others that I dislike.
Oh, yeah. Because,
I would love to talk about Oh Superman with you. This is a very interesting
one. It's kind of the standout. It went to number 2 in the UK.
Which is absolutely bizarre to me because I don't think it's a good song at all. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, it's had a resurgence. It's been trending on TikTok.
So someone used something in something. I don't know. I don't do TikTok. I'm too old.
Yeah. So there's bits of it I like. I like the idea and the general. I like that a lot.
And that's been repurposed so many times. Anytime someone wants to show any sort of performance art, the background is always going to be.
Yep.
Oh, Superman. Oh, John.
I just want to know, and you probably won't know because you've said you came to this album late as well. It was one of the later albums you discovered her on. How the fuck did that become a hit? I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, even of all the songs on this album, you would think maybe from the air. Like,
I mean, it's always done better in Europe than the US, as you would expect. That
tracks. I can totally understand that. Yeah.
Oh Superman in particular did very well in the UK because John Peel played it almost on loop.
Okay.
And obviously was the most influential DJ of probably 2 or 3 decades in the UK.
Yeah.
That helped. Plus, it's awesome.
Okay, I think it's fine. It's not my favorite track on this album. It's not my least favorite track. I don't understand how it.
The other thing that surprises me is that it's over 8 minutes long, which makes it very, even in the early 80s, that's a big stretch for something to be. Oh, sorry, I don't want to talk over this. Best track on the album.
Oh, really?
Ihren Klang.
Love it.
Ich verstehe die Sprachen. Ich verstehe die Sprachen nicht.
Shining slowly.
Ich höre nur
Birds are flying
ihren Klang.
so low. Honey, you're my one and only. So pay me what you owe me. The lights are going down.
So is that your favorite track?
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird not to say "Oh Superman" just because it is it is the biggest thing in her entire career in terms of individual tracks. But I just fucking love Example 22.
Oh, I think that's better than "Oh Superman" for sure.
Beispiel paranormalen Trubenstimmen, Essenstimmen, paranormalen Trubenstimmen.
Then we get to the final 3 tracks on the album.
Like he might have been
I like "Let X Equal X."
Yep.
This again is probably one of my favorite tracks. I think it's again one of the ones that's the most.
It's a really nice track.
It's one of the most poetic ones. It's one of the ones that I think is the most well written in terms of what it's saying.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Right. Again. Let X equal X. You know?
But my memory of the last 2 tracks is not fond at all. Walk the Dog is
Walk the Dog's a bonus. It's not. It's not on the original album. It was on the re-release.
That's up there with Sweaters for me in terms of like I do not like this.
I actually don't remember. I know I've got it because I've got every version, but I haven't listened to it in about 20 years, so I don't even actively record it.
Yeah.
She said, it looks. Don't you think it looks a lot like rain? He said, isn't it? Isn't it just?
Yeah, I was actually wrong. So that's It Tango, which is the final track apart from Walk the Dog. That one I actually do like.
Let X Equal X and It Tango are kind of a two for a lot of the times you see it represented as one track.
Yeah, well that's I guess why it blended together for me, because that one I actually do like. So yeah, look, all in all, I actually like this album. I think you picked something really interesting here.
I'm now so keen to give you Strange Angels that I may even do it next one rather than I don't know, because I do want to. Yeah, I don't know. I'll need to think about it.
Like,
but
I mean,
I'm pleased.
It's bizarre, and I wouldn't call it a perfect album personally, because there are those tracks that I'm like, I don't like this. But that said, I mean, that's part of what it's doing.
But the thing is as well, like, I mean, I was kind of almost trolling when I gave you this, because it's the soundtrack to a visual performance piece.
Calling it an album on its own is almost not.
I mean, I hesitate to even make the comparison because it's infinitely better, but it's kind of like Hamilton, where you're listening to something that has a visual aspect to it, and in this case, even more so, because you've got the performance, but you've also got light shows and all the other parts that go into a performance art. So I kind of would really, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're on stream. I'll find out and I'll send you a link. I don't expect you to do the homework. I'll send you a link because it's worth checking out one of the shows from around this time.
Yeah.
Because there's like 60% of what she's doing that you obviously don't get on the album. And I think it'll fill in a lot of the blanks, and things like Sweaters, which seem like a fucking oral nightmare.
Yeah.
That's AU oral. Yeah. I'm not talking about someone with braces. Will make more sense in context.
Yeah.
And I'd be really interested to see what you think of seeing sort of what she was doing in that period as her career, because this is kind of you're missing a big chunk of it, I think, with the album. But I'm glad you liked it at all.
Yeah,
I wasn't even expecting.
It's a super interesting.
It's already a huge success compared to what I was expecting.
It's a super interesting one, and yeah, as you say, and I wouldn't recommend it to people as an
most
album.
people, yeah.
But I'm gonna give it. See, a 6.5 sounds too low, but a 7, I don't know. For what it is, I'm gonna say a 7. I like it.
So much higher than I was expecting.
Yeah. So, and my pick for the playlist is From the Air. I love that track. Can't
argue with that.
It's a great
one of my
opening.
too.
So there you go. All right. Well, I'm kind of nervous about what I'm giving you next week because I'm going to give it to you to try and convince you to come see them live with me. I've been
asking me on a date?
I've been talking on this show about the Beths probably since episode 1 because I did discover them through
them before.
I did discover them through my love of Charlie Bliss. They are from New Zealand. And
nice.
I think that they are some of the best power pop songwriters of ever. I absolutely adore the Beths. And they just announced a show in Sydney on the 1st of March.
So are we talking like Charlie Bliss levels?
For me, yeah, 100%. They're right up there.
Ooh, damn.
You know, and you know how much I love Charlie Bliss. I've given you both their albums on the show. The Beths for me are another one.
You've said to me numerous times in the past that if Eva ever put the offer out, you'd leave Noosk in a heartbeat. So
the Beths are another one for me that for those few episodes we could rebrand this The Hunt for the Perfect Band because I could give you any 3 of their albums. I could give you their first EP, but I'm going to give you their most recent one, which I think is their most polished, which just came out late 2022. So it's just over a year old from memory. It's Expert in a Dying
fresh.
Field. So I hope you enjoy that one. I guess we'll find out next week. But
keen. I mean, you obviously speak very highly.
Yes.
I'm interested.
But thank you for joining us here on The Perfect Album. That's next week, and I'm going to leave you out with a little bit of big science here.
Nice. Oh.
It's cold outside. It's cold outside. Don't forget your mittens. Hey, pal, how do I get to town from